You are God in human flesh. Jesus says 2 words. I am. In the Exodus, Moses is there in front of the burning bush. And again, you know the story of Moses, right? He's chosen to lead the people of Israel, and he's going, God, can you find somebody else? I don't talk no good. Get me somebody else, not my brother, Aaron. Somebody else, not me. Okay, I guess Aaron. And then if we go, what am I supposed to tell them? They don't believe me. What does he say? Tell them, I am sent you. So immediately when they heard the words of Jesus mention I am, they tore their cloak. Right? They usher them from person to person to person for somebody else to make the decision of who Jesus really is. What do we do with this person of Jesus? Let's take him to Pilate. Pilate's the governor. You see, because really what's happened, because of the oppression of the Roman people, you have master versus slave. Rome is master, Israel is slave. Let's take him to the master of masters, the person named Pontius Pilate. And he goes through the Roman laws. It's the interrogation. So, what did you do to me? Everybody mad. After he goes through the interrogation, he starts to ask other people, well, what did he do? You see, the Sanhedrin said it was blasphemy to say that he is God. But now they say it's treason. He's saying that he is God and only Caesar can be God. And Pilate looks at him and he says, you know what? The guy hasn't done anything wrong. Let's send him to another guy named Herod Antipas. Right? Herod was the one who beheaded John the Baptist. All he wanted to do is he wanted to see more of the miracles of Jesus, right? He just wanted to see the circus, right? He wanted, hey, could you do like the whole dead people coming back out? Like, I heard you made a lot of people mad. Could you do that again? He wanted to paint Jesus into the corner. He wanted to paint him into a box so that Jesus himself would get Jesus in trouble. And Herod looks at him, and Herod says, you know what? I don't, I'm going to send it back to Pilate. Nobody knew what to do with Jesus. And all this was happening to fulfill the prophets of old. And he comes back to Pilate. And Pilate's looking at him and he's like, guys, I've already told you that this man Jesus, y'all upset at him, but it's a Jewish thing. It's not a Roman thing. And it's interesting because Caesar, which would be the head of Rome, and Jesus were in conflict at times. Hey, what do we do about taxes? Right? Wouldn't it be great if Jesus just said, don't pay taxes? If that was in red. Like, woohoo! Not paying taxes anymore, Pastor. I'm not saying that. I don't want the IRS come knocking on my door. Excuse me, were you preaching? So don't edit this part out. He says, give to Caesar what is Caesar, and give to God what is God's. Then he flips it because God owns it all. Right? When they're standing there, master versus slave relationship. Right? You're thinking this would be the opportunity for Jesus to overthrow Pontius Pilate. I always waited for like Jesus to like do like the ninja warrior thing. Like, wouldn't it be cool? Like, if all of a sudden, like the angels came down and he was like, wah! Like, everybody fell over dead, and he was like, Super Jesus! Right? That's what I keep waiting for. Right? He's got the big J on his chest, like, yes, I am the Messiah. But he doesn't. Do you know what he says? Slaves, like, obey those who are in authority over you. I hate that verse. It's a naughty verse for me. Because I've had some bad, like, people who've been in leadership over me. And you're just like, man, like, how do you do that? It says, no slave is above his master. problem with people in leadership above you? It isn't just a you in a position of people in leadership above you. It's a you and God issue. Wow. Because Jesus is God in human form. And he's looking at Pontius Pilate. And he was obedient. Even when he stood in front of the masses and he said, I don't know what else to do. But Pilate, Caiaphas, the Sanhedrin, Herod Antipas, Annas, they all were afraid of Jesus, not because of who Jesus is, but because of what Jesus could have done. Because if Jesus was who he said he was, then all of a sudden I'm no longer the king and I'm no longer in control of my life. Jesus was a threat. Jesus was a threat to Pilate because if there was an uprising within Jerusalem and he's the governor, well, he was hoping to be promoted to another position. So he stands in front of everybody and he says, hey, within your tradition, one of the things that we do is we release a prisoner and we crucify a prisoner. So who do you want? Barabbas, the rebel rouser, right? Who maybe could lead another insurrection, or Jesus, who you call the Messiah. Remember Hosanna. Within 1 week, the bloodthirsty crowd goes from Hosanna to crucify him. And we look at this story and we go, man, Jesus got a raw deal. But what if we put it in the context of the way nature had worked for thousands of years? See, this would usher in Passover week. This Tuesday at 7 o'clock at the United Methodist Church, I encourage you, if you guys want to see Jesus in the Passover, make it a point to go to the Methodist Church across from the post office. Talk about Christ in the Passover. Because for thousands of years they had the Passover. Pointed back to when Moses was leading his people out of Israel, God's chosen people. And if you remember, the very last plague that happened was the plague of the firstborn. And they had to go and they would find a perfect lamb. They would sacrifice the lamb and they would be covered by the blood. They would put it above the doorpost, put it above their door, and the death angel would pass over thousands of years. They celebrated Passover. This was the beginning of Passover. So to celebrate Passover, you know one of the jobs of the high priest? To inspect the lamb. And after he would inspect the lamb, you know what he would say? This lamb here is without spot, without blemish. This lamb here is perfect. This lamb here can be a sacrificial lamb. Jesus wasn't interviewed by one high priest, but two. In both instances, they said, I find no fault in this man. Interesting, huh? Another habit of the Feast of Passover is that they would take one lamb, two lambs. And the high priest would transfer all of the sins into one of the lambs. Then he let the other one go, and it was known as the scapegoat. Growing up, my sister was the scapegoat. I didn't do it with my sister. Right? Don't look me, you gotta look her. She's the scapegoat. Right? So we look at it and you go, oh, wait a second. From the beginning, Passover, this is what has happened. So when they stood there and they let Jesus and Barabbas go, Pontius Pilate was just thinking, I'm going to manufacture this and manipulate this in a way that everybody else would just tamp down and just listen to me. I would still be in control. Caiaphas can still be the high priest. The Sanhedrin can still walk around and be righteous and pious. Give us Barabbas. Barabbas becomes the scapegoat, and Jesus is crucified. So here's my question for you. It's Palm Sunday. We're here on our Sunday best. Many of us are here, and maybe we are. I want to change the wording in the vernacular for you. I don't want to be just a Christian, a little Christ. I want to be a disciple. I want to be covered in the dust of my teacher. That when people see me, they see a reflection of who God is. They see Christ shining through. The problem with the disciple, go and read this. Many of them, all of them, lost their lives. Because it's easier to be a cultural Christian when you mix culture and Christianity together. And things become acceptable because, well, I'm not a disciple, I'm just a Christian. The challenge is today is to grow in grace. Did the disciples get it right? No. Like we said last week, Simon, Judas, they messed it up. But I think if we were to be real honest with ourselves, we'd have some people who are on the periphery. It's Palm Sunday. I'll come back next Sunday because it's Easter, and that's what you do. It's what cultural Christians do. We show up, we punch our cards, and we'll see you again at Christmas. That's okay. The difference is, instead of lilies next time you come, we'll have incense. We'll just have a nice chair for you, probably. What would it look like to go from the periphery? So, you know what? I want to step across the line of faith and really be a devoted follower of Jesus Christ. I think we're going to be real honest. Some of us are more like Herod Antipas. That all we want Jesus to do is be the miracle-working God. I don't really want to have a relationship with him. I want him just to come and heal all the bad parts of me. Right? Come and heal all the worst parts of me. Come heal all the broken parts of me. So we call it fire insurance, right? That just in case, like, all this is true, I don't want to die and go to hell. I don't really want to have a relationship with him. I think we have a lot of Caiaphas and Sanhedrins and Pilates. That really, if we're to be real honest, we don't really need God. Have a nice house. The car works most of the time. Right? Sure, my 401k is now a 201k, but it's getting better. Right? My health is okay. And if I really accept Jesus as Messiah, as Lord of all, that means I'm ceding control of my life. Let's put him on the show. So my challenge for you this week, this Holy Week, as we go from Jesus as the Messiah, as a suffering servant, don't miss this. What did he ride in on? Donkey. As a suffering servant. I was sharing this with Bill in one of my preparation for this message this week. This guy said one of the cultural misconceptions that we have is that Simon of Cyrene had to carry the cross of Christ because he himself wasn't physically strong enough. And he said that's a Hollywood misconception. It wasn't that he was so broken in body. It was a Roman tactic to make him look weak. That every step that Jesus, he was just walking through the next step. Why? Because he loved you. So if I was to title this message anything, it'd be called Freedom Through Surrender.